A massive arms factory must be built in Poland to help Ukraine win the war, the chairman of the Defense Select Committee has said. Tobias Ellwood said Western governments had demonstrated a lack of strategic foresight in their plans for helping Ukraine to survive and thrive. While the Conservative MP welcomed the decision to deliver Western-made main battle tanks, he told The Telegraph the model of donations to Kyiv with differing supply chains and types of ammunition was unsustainable. It's just not feasible in the long term, he said. Tanks today, yes. But we need a strategy to make sure Ukraine can defend itself. With Western military stocks dwindling, Mr. Ellwood said the creation of an arms factory in Poland could help transform the Ukrainian armed forces into a more independent military. The concept is modeled on a microchip factory opened by Taiwan, which fears a Chinese invasion could cut it off from the West in the United States. Let's do the same with Ukraine so they can procure their own equipment to their own specification, probably NATO standard, and have a constantly protected supply chain, said Mr. Ellwood. Talks have already opened with Poland over hosting such a facility, and Mr. Ellwood proposed that Britain should take a leading role amongst Western governments to ensure the project could be successful. It is thought Ukraine would be able to use the factory to produce the German-made Leopard 2 tank under license to further bolster stocks in the future. The move would significantly ease pressure on Western arms companies struggling to keep up with the demand of the war in Ukraine and the need to replenish stocks among NATO's militaries. It comes as the Pentagon said it wanted to increase the production of artillery shells to levels not seen since the Korean War in the next 2 years. Before the war, the U.S. Army produced 14,400 unguided shells a month. Under new U.S. plans, this will increase to 90,000 a month. In previous conflicts, we had stockpiles that were sufficient for the conflict, Douglas Bush, the U.S. Army's top acquisition official, told the New York Times. In this case, we're seeking to increase production to both maintain our stockpile for some other contingency, but also supply an ally. Many of Ukraine's military backers have warned that they have supported Kyiv at the cost of their own defenses, a worrying prospect for NATO commanders. Leading officials inside the military alliance have opened talks with arms manufacturers in the hope of them ramping up production, but many are unwilling to do so because there is no guarantee over future orders of weapons. Taking into account the realities of the ongoing war in Ukraine and the visible attitude of many countries aimed at increased spending in the field of defense budgets, there is a real chance to enter new markets and increase export revenues in the coming years, said Sebastian Chwalek, CEO of Poland's PGZ. State-owned PGZ controls more than 50 companies making weapons and ammunition from armored transporters to unmanned air systems and holds stakes in dozens more. It now plans to invest up to 8 billion zlotys, $1.8 billion, over the next decade, more than double its pre-war target, Chwalek said. That includes new facilities located further from the border with Russia's ally Belarus for security reasons, he said. Other manufacturers are also increasing production capacity and racing to hire workers, companies and government officials from Poland, Slovakia and the Czech Republic said. Immediately after Russia's attack, some Eastern European militaries and manufacturers began emptying their warehouses of Soviet-era weapons and ammunition that Ukrainians were familiar with, as Kyiv waited for NATO standard equipment from the West. As those stocks have dwindled, arms makers have cranked up production of both older and modern equipment to keep supplies flowing. The stream of weapons has helped Ukraine push back Russian forces and reclaim swaths of territory. Chwalek said PGZ would now produce 1,000 portable Pioran air defense systems in 2023, not all for Ukraine, compared to 600 in 2022 and 300 to 350 in previous years. The company, which he said has also delivered artillery and mortar systems, howitzers, bulletproof vests, small arms and ammunition to Ukraine, is likely to surpass a pre-war 2022 revenue target of 6.74 billion zlotys. Companies and officials declined to give specific details of military supplies to Ukraine, and some did not want to be identified, citing security and commercial sensitivities. Eastern Europe's arms industry dates back to the 19th century, when Czech Emil Skoda began manufacturing weapons for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Under communism, huge factories in Czechoslovakia, the Warsaw Pact's second-largest weapons producer, Poland and elsewhere in the region, kept people employed, turning out weapons for Cold War conflicts Moscow stoked around the world. The Czech Republic was one of the powerhouses of weapons exporters, and we have the personnel, material base and production lines needed to increase capacity, its NATO ambassador Jakub Landowski said. This is a great chance for the Czechs and Poland to increase what we need after giving the Ukrainians the old Soviet-era stocks. This can show other countries we can be a reliable partner in the arms industry. The 1991 collapse of the Soviet Union and NATO's expansion into the region pushed companies to modernize, but they can still quickly produce things like ammunition that fits the Soviet systems, said Simon Wiesman, a researcher at the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute.